together. So today I decided to kind of use what's been happening in the world around us to kind of discuss something that I think deserves a little bit more awareness. As some of you may or may not know, aside from it being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, it is also Mental Health Month. Mental Health Day was recently October 10th on Tuesday. So I thought that today would be a great day to be able to talk about something that I think is going to become extremely important in the years to come. I'm going to be talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD for short. Why am I talking about this? PTSD is a psychiatric condition, and it can actually come about after experiencing a traumatic event. It's symptomatic. You feel it in your body, and it's not easy to deal with. So that is why I want to talk about this, especially with all the hurricanes and earthquakes and survivors of all of these issues that are going on in the world right now. So I'm going to be talking about the risk factors of post-traumatic stress disorder, or basically what makes you more likely to be able to have it. I'll also be talking about the symptoms of it. I'll also talk about ways to deal with it and ways to live with it, and what you can do to really help yourself if you're living with this very difficult condition. So first I want to start by saying welcome back. And so now we're going to begin with PTSD. So what kind of traumatic events can predispose you to having PTSD? Like disasters. It could be technological, like if a power plant went to go out or something like that. It can be natural disasters, earthquakes like the one in Mexico. I'm praying for you guys. I think about you guys all the time. Also hurricanes with, Hurricane Harvey in Texas and Hurricane Irma here in Florida. All of the people who have been exposed to this event are now at risk of having PTSD symptoms. And this is a very difficult disease to live with, and I'll explain to you why in just a minute. Other things, it could also be from surviving a gun shooting, witnessing a gun shooting like what just happened in Las Vegas, sexual assault, or any kind of assault. If you are in a grocery store and someone tries to rob the store, if you are walking and someone jumps you and tries to steal your purse from you, or steal your wallet or your jewelry, or steals your car, anything that basically attacks you in your personal space and makes you feel unsafe and you consider to be a trauma, that can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, either within a month or much later in years to come. Other things that can predispose you, obviously when you think PTSD, the first thing you think, oh, veterans. Yes, of course, veterans. They see death, they see explosions, they are on high alert all the time, they are on edge, they feel unsafe 24/7 no matter where they are, looking over their shoulder, trying to see who's going to attack them, to hurt them and kill them. So yes, of course, any situation that puts you in high alert or aroused state is going to predispose you to having PTSD. So yes, veterans. What are some of the risk factors? So a lot of studies have been conducted, and it turns out that women are more likely than men to have PTSD. I'm not sure why women are more likely to have it. I'm a woman, so obviously this kind of makes me a little weary when it comes to special events like natural disasters and things like that. Why women? I don't know. Is it because we're more emotional? Maybe. Is it because of our brain is different than a man's? I don't know, possibly. All I know is that women are more likely than men to get it. Another thing, if you are low income or live in poverty or have a lot of stressors in your life, this also predisposes you to that. In fact, some studies show that African Americans are also more likely to have post-traumatic stress disorder. Other mental health conditions may predispose you to getting other mental conditions. So if you have depression, if you have anxiety, if you have panic attacks, if you have any kind of other mental disease yourself, this already puts you at higher risk of being able to acquire PTSD if you experience a traumatic event in your life. What else? It's not just you, it's also your family. If in your family you have a grandfather who had depression, you have a family member who's bipolar, you have someone in your family related to you by blood that has had, suicidal ideations or has in fact actually committed suicide. These are all risk factors that do predispose you yourself and your other family members to having other mental conditions. PTSD is also one of them. Okay, so enough about, the predisposing factors or what kind of traumas are considered, to predispose you to this. Is it just if you yourself are a survivor? No. Actually, it turns out that family members of survivors or family members who have traumatically and immediately lost a loved one they themselves can also experience PTSD. Those of us watching television and seeing what is happening, that to us is an exposure to a traumatic event, and we ourselves are predisposed to having PTSD. So it's not just a survivor's disease. It is not just a thing of a person who experiences trauma. You can see some bad event happen, and then you will experience trauma. You know, this is something that happens worldwide, and it's a very difficult issue. In fact, in the United States, 7.7 million people will experience symptoms of PTSD at one point in their lives. Symptoms of PTSD. What are some of the symptoms? There are 4 categories of symptoms, actually. One of them is intrusive thoughts. What does this mean? Intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, very vivid memories. It can even be nightmares or reliving it in dreams. And it's not just that they're vivid, it's that you will literally lose time. You will think you are reliving the experience as if you were actually there in that moment in time. So you can imagine if, for example, you survived the shooting in Las Vegas, and you know, it's been a couple of months, maybe a year even, and you're walking around and it's, you know, New Year's Day, and all of a sudden firecrackers start going off. That person could completely black out and duck to the floor and believe 100% that they are back in that shooting environment. So this is something that is very scary. It is very tough to deal with. Nightmares are very prevalent, and this is actually one of the most important or essential parts of this disease. For you to be able to be diagnosed with PTSD, you need to have the intrusion and a few other symptoms that I'll talk about now. So intrusive thoughts is one of them. Another one is arousal. So I kind of already talked about this, but the arousal is you're on edge, you're hyper vigilant, you're always looking around, paying attention to the detail, who's walking by, what was that noise, who slammed the door, something's, you know, crackling. And this arousal, you know, it releases a lot of stress hormones in your body, and stress is fine and it's good for you when it's in moderation, when it's in acute meaning short-term moments, not when it's prolonged over long periods of time. So the arousal actually predisposes you to having experiences and intrusive thoughts by random triggers. It could be the word someone says, it could be a song, it could be a smell, it could be a bunch of other things that I'll talk about in a few minutes as well. So intrusive thoughts and arousal. The next thing that you have is avoidance. So avoidance of what? Say you survived the shooting in Las Vegas. Something you may want to avoid is another public gathering of the sort. Maybe you live in Miami and you went to Vegas for the concert. All of a sudden you're back in Miami and it's Ultra Weekend, and guess what? There's no way in hell you're going to be going to that event. You are petrified that it will happen again. So you start avoiding certain situations that you think might be risky or similar to what happened during the traumatic event. Maybe you'll only avoid country music concerts. Maybe you'll avoid going to Vegas altogether. Maybe you'll avoid going to events that are surrounded by high rises. Maybe you'll avoid, it doesn't matter what you avoid. It just matters that you start avoiding things because you're petrified that it might happen again. So the fourth thing that will happen is mood. Your mood will be completely dysregulated. Symptoms are very similar to those of depression. It's called anhedonia, or loss of interest in things you used to love doing. You'll also have feelings of guilt or shame. Why did I survive? Why did they die? Why did I live? Or you could be ashamed. Why couldn't I save this person? Or why did I go? My mother told me not to go. My fiance told me not to go. I should have listened. I should have known better. How would I put myself at this risk? Guilt, shame, worthlessness. I'm not worthy of surviving. Other people died. I should have died too. What makes me so different? I don't have value. I'm not that important. Why am I here? And so you start having these feelings, and then you have depression. You have the symptoms of the sadness. You have changes in mood. You have changes, you know, you're slower. You don't really want to do things you used to love doing. You don't want to communicate with people you love. You don't want to see your friends. You don't want to talk to your family. You just want to stay alone and, you know, cooped up and sad. And really you sink into this black hole of bad emotions. So that's your mood. So 4 different categories, and they must all be present. All 4 must be present for at least 1 month or more for a psychiatrist to diagnose you with PTSD. If you have these and it's less than 1 month, it's not PTSD, it is acute stress disorder, ASD. So it's kind of like on a spectrum of traumatic disorders. ASD meaning less than 1 month symptoms, and then PTSD for more than 1 month. So those are the symptoms, but what can you do? I mean, is there anything that can really help alleviate?